Today we gather to pay tribute to Justice Petse, a distinguished figure in the legal community who recently celebrated his 70th birthday and is embarking on a well-deserved retirement after an illustrious career as a legal practitioner and jurist. It is said that age is merely a number of years that the world has been enjoying you. And indeed, Justice Petse, in South Africa and the legal profession has had the fortunate benefit from your wisdom, your dedication, and your unwavering commitment to justice. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an exceptional program lined up for you this afternoon, filled with heartfelt tributes and special addresses. Here's a glimpse of what you can look forward to. There will be tributes and messages of support. We will hear heartfelt tributes from distinguished colleagues and friends who have had the privilege of working alongside Justice Petse. There will also be a special address by President Madam Justice Molamela, who will highlight the profound influence of Justice Petse and the judicial leadership has on the maturation of our democracy. Then we are honored to have a career retrospect that will be done by the Deputy Chief Justice Maya, and that will be to share insights and reflections of Justice Petse's impactful career and contributions to the legal landscape. Justice Petse, your journey in the legal field has been nothing short of extraordinary. Your legacy is not just in the rulings you've handed down, but in the countless lives you've touched, the careers you've inspired, and the unwavering principles of justice you've upheld. Today, as we celebrate you, we also celebrate the profound impact you've had and will continue to make as your wisdom and influence reverberate through the future generations of legal practitioners. With great anticipation and admiration, let us now immerse ourselves in the celebration of a truly remarkable individual, Justice Petse, and I'm told, and I hope I do honor to the clan name, Tswelebe. I hand over back to my co-host.
Earlier on, I was just overwhelmed by the president, how he welcomed the king, and forgive me for having not to welcome you properly because I was overwhelmed by the whole process. We acknowledge you and the Queen, and you are very much welcome. I'm going to call upon Professor T. Ndlovu, who is the Dean of Law, Humanities, and Social Sciences, to welcome us to this institution.
Deputy Chief Justice, Justice Maya, Constitutional Court judges, Supreme Court of Appeal judges, judges of various divisions, magistrates, advocates, attorneys, and Vice Chancellor of WSU in absentia, Prof. Songa, Walter Sisulu University Executive Management Committee, kings, chiefs, and headmen, family of Justice Pius Langa, retiring Judge Petse, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. It is a singular honor to stand before you and welcome you to this event, which celebrates the illustrious career of Justice Petse. I am sure that I speak for all of us that it is indeed a well-deserved retirement of an extraordinary individual. While we gather to say farewell to this esteemed member of the judiciary, we should be alive to the legacy that he is bequeathing us, the championing of justice and human rights. His efforts remind us that these two are not a given, but a struggle. They require dedication, they require effort, the kind of unparalleled commitment which is the example that Judge Petse has amply demonstrated for all of us. I have no doubt that his contributions to society at large will continue. In fact, our faculty extends a personal invitation to you, Judge Petse, to join us as an associate. We know that your unwavering sense of purpose and wisdom will benefit us immensely. I am delighted, as are those gathered here, to share in expressing our deepest gratitude for the remarkable service you have rendered this country. Thank you, Judge Petse, for your remarkable service, whose value will be spoken for by your enduring legacy. There are those who are better placed than I am to talk about the glorious achievements that you have accomplished in your career. And so, with those few words, I welcome you all and I thank you.
It is also my privilege and honor to call our Secretary General to the floor, Nolita Jali, to give a welcoming address. Thank you.
Members of the judiciary, distinguished guests, Kumkani, Nomamekai, honorable members, members of the legal fraternity at large, all protocol observed. My name is Nolita Jali, and I am the Secretary General of NADEL. On behalf of the President of NADEL, I am here to welcome you. In a time that will reflect on the contribution made by our former Chief Justice Pius Langa to our democracy and the advancement of the rights of the marginalized, it is only befitting that we celebrate equally the invaluable contribution by the outgoing Deputy President of the SCA, Justice Ola Mlungisi-Petse. It would be remiss of me not to firstly congratulate Deputy President on the celebration of his 70th birthday on the 10th of July this year. Best wishes and many happy returns, Deputy President. Deputy President was born in the village of Kokolweni in the Eastern Cape. He matriculated from Bensonvale High School in Sterkspruit in 1972, and he worked for 2 years as a clerk in the Department of Justice in Transkei, Bantustan, and that is partly why we are here today. Siyam Kodus. For NADEL, this celebration today was, among others, kickstarted by a letter dated 19th of July, 2019, addressed to the Secretary of the Judicial Services Commission, headed NADEL's submission in respect of Judge XM Petse's appointment as the Deputy President of the Supreme Court of Appeal. It reads as follows. The National Association of Democratic Lawyers, NADEL, has been informed and made aware about the nomination of Honorable Mr. Justice XM Petse for the position of Deputy President of the Supreme Court of Appeal in the Republic of South Africa. We support the appointment of Justice XM Petse for the position of Deputy President of the Supreme Court of Appeal. In our view, Justice Petse possesses the necessary leadership qualities for the position of Deputy President for the SCA. The Honorable Mr. Justice Petse is presently a judge of the Supreme Court of Appeal, and he had acted in the Constitutional Court. In order to assist the JSC, the following background is important. Mr. Justice Petse was admitted in 1982, and he practiced law as an attorney in the Republic of South Africa and the then Transkei, with offices based in Mthatha. Justice Petse became a member of NADEL immediately upon his admission as an attorney. He demonstrated himself to be a committed and dedicated member and leader of the profession who understands the challenges facing the society and the need for a transformed judiciary. Justice Petse is one of the progressive jurists who understands the underpinning need for a transformed society. Mr. Justice Petse had an excellent judicial record from the lower court, High Court, Supreme Court of Appeal, and the Constitutional Court. We admire the good quality of his work as shown in his judgments, both reported and unreported. We admire his discipline and the discipline he commands to maintain the decorum of the courts. Of course, we have known him as a disciplinarian from way back in the 1980s when he was a practicing attorney in the then Transkei and broader South Africa, and now that he's a judge of the Supreme Court of Appeal. He earned the career progression to his present position through hard work, discipline, and integrity that he has always maintained throughout. We will not mention his immense contribution in the legal profession, particularly as a cadre and loyal member of NADEL. On leadership, we said, as an attorney, Mr. Justice Petse served in the Cape Law Society as a council member. The Law Society is an institution responsible for the regulation of attorneys. Mr. Justice Petse was responsible at this level for the monitoring of professional conduct by attorneys. This he did well, and his leadership was confirmed. Mr. Petse was appointed as an attorney's examiner. At this level, Mr. Petse was responsible for the administration and marking of exams for candidate attorneys. As a director in his firm, Mr. Petse, prior to his appointment as a judge, was running a successful practice which trained a number of candidates who are now practicing on their own. Among his candidates, a number of females were trained. His candidates always demonstrated maximum professionalism, a good grasp of the law, and ethical behavior. Justice Petse, subsequent to his appointment as a judge, was appointed as an acting deputy judge president in the Mthatha High Court, Eastern Cape. During his leadership in the Mthatha High Court was stable and functioning smoothly. We can safely confirm that as a head of the Mthatha Court in the Eastern Cape, Justice Petse proved himself as a competent administrator as he inter alia introduced worthwhile innovations which conduced to the smooth running and functioning of the court. His passionate sense of justice ensured that reserved judgments were not unduly delayed. This he did by his own timely delivery of judgments. The experience of Justice Petse, which all begins when he joined the Department of Justice in 1973 as a clerk and thereafter occupied various leadership positions within the Department of Justice, which include being a prosecutor, state attorney's office, an attorney, and subsequently a judge. In conclusion, accordingly, we believe that the appointment of Justice X.M. Petse confirms an appointment of a suitable, qualified person with all the necessary leadership skills and attributes. We support that Justice Petse be appointed as the Deputy President of the Supreme Court of Appeal. Indeed, members, guests, he was appointed, and I'm happy to say that he did not disappoint. NADEL's objectives is to ensure access to justice, access to the legal profession, and to ensure a transformed legal profession. Deputy Justice Petse embodied all these values, and that is why we are here today. I now welcome you all as we celebrate Justice Petse's illustrious career. Thank you.
So now it's time for tributes. The first one, I'm going to call upon Judge President of the Eastern Cape Division of the High Court, Judge President Mbenenge, to come forward and pay tribute, please.
Program directors, ladies and gentlemen, two enemies are confronting me. The one is time, the other one is the expression, expressio unius est exclusio alterius, meaning that mention of one thing is exclusion of the other. For that reason, allow me to simply say protocol observed. But it would be an offense for me not to acknowledge Uzizi, Utabu, Uwamba nomakhatebe, masiqhwabe izandla. First and foremost, my special thanks goes to Nadel for inviting me to this occasion and affording me the opportunity to pay tribute to one of the sons of the soil. I got to know Justice Petse in 1984 during my days as Regional Court Prosecutor, Umtata. He had commenced practicing as an attorney with the Sangoni Partnership as it then was. I admired his steady but sure approach to criminal trial advocacy. Already, there were signs of him being an astute lawyer. When later I joined the bar in 1992, Justice Petse had been practicing under the name and style Hughes Chislom and Erie, INC. At that point in time, the right of audience in the High Court was limited to advocates. Justice Petse equitably briefed junior members of the bar to appear in motion court. He did so in a structured and systematic fashion. Budding advocates would be briefed to postpone matters and in no time gravitate to moving interlocutory applications. Eventually, they would move substantive, unopposed applications. Not even a draft order did counsel have to settle. You did not even have to cross the T's and dot the I's. The papers emanating from Justice Petse's desk were a model of clarity. In that process, the drafting skills of junior counsel were greatly honed. In essence, one would, so to speak, mark a fee for being schooled in drafting. And for merely standing up and saying, "My lord, the papers are in order, may it please you to grant an order in terms of the draft order." Regardless of the number of pages, court papers were always indexed and paginated. Pleadings were shorn of verbiage and limited to essentials. Affidavits were bereft of tautology and slovenliness. For example, besides citing the parties, especially in interlocutory applications, affidavits would start off like this. This is an application for the relief set out more fully in the notice that is prefixed here too. Meaning that you didn't have to repeat that which is sought in the notice of motion. You didn't have to repeat it in the conclusion of the affidavit. the focus was on quality, not quantity. Ladies and gentlemen, it is no exaggeration to say that in this part of the world, the transformative agenda was implemented way back then. With the advent of the right of appearance in Courts Act 62 of 1995, Mr. Justice Spetse was one of the first attorneys who utilized the right of audience in the High Court. He was a formidable opponent even to many a counsel whose sole preserve had hitherto been the High Court. An astute jurist though he was, at no stage was he ever discourteous to the court and his opponent. He still briefed counsel when circumstances permitted of it, presumably being of the view that two are better than one. Whilst contemplating about today's proceedings, I recalled the privilege of having worked closely with him in Ayanda Godlo and others versus Minister of Home Affairs, case number 40 of 2003. In that matter, a multitude of employees of the Department of the Interior of the former Transkei, stationed at the government printer, had been promoted through a conversion of posts and scales by the then Transkei administration. The then Judge White Commission set aside those promotions, but the applicants successfully challenged the relevant finding of the commission. They thereupon launched separate applications in which they sought a mandamus that they be translated in accordance with a dispensation that was applicable in 1994. On a default judgment basis, they were granted the relief in May 2003. When the orders they had obtained were not complied with, they once again launched separate applications, approximately 70 in number, against the Minister of Home Affairs, and obtained similar orders, in terms whereof the Home Affairs Minister was declared to be in contempt of court for failure to comply with the orders of May 2003. It was in the heat of such contempt proceedings that the Minister of Home Affairs, through the State Attorney Mtata, instructed Justice Spetse and I to represent the ministry. Working on a brief together with Justice Spetse as instructing attorney was a memorable moment. While executing our mandate, we unleashed that some of the purported applicants, as at the time the applications were launched, were no longer in the employ of the Home Affairs Department, and some had passed on. The first step was obviously to seek a consolidation of these applications, which was successfully done. It was during this time that Justice Spetse and I befriended one another. That brief, the drafting stage took us something like a month, and we were interacting with officials from the Home Affairs Department. And I learned one thing during the interaction with him, that even though he tends to exude a serious mood, behind that was a warm-hearted person. Though introverted and having a preference for solitude, during the best of times, he was witty and jocular. Once upon a time, whilst working on his brief, I called his office with a view to discussing an aspect of the case. Mrs. Gugushe, who was then his secretary, responded, "Ubhuti akafuni kuphazanyiswa." Ebethe angaphazanyiswa, uzijixele uvalile. And my response was, "Khangelapha ke mem, andiyiva kakuhle le nto uyithethayo. Kaloku nguye ondithume enkundleni ephakamileyo. Ndifuna ukuqiniseka ngale nto andithume yona." In no time, the way was paved for me to talk to my instructing attorney, Ubra X. On another occasion, I had executed his mandate to a finish, and payday had arrived. Ngezo ntsuku ke sasibhatalwa nge-checks. Thwaxa i-check ebhalwe ngesiXhosa, igqwetha eliyindoda lenkundla ephakamileyo esembenenge, nemali ikwabhalwe ngesiXhosa. The bank teller was amused at this, but honored the check nevertheless. Shortly thereafter, I learned that he had done the same with Advocate Madlanga, now Justice Madlanga. And to date, this is one of those experiences Justice Madlanga and I still laugh at when conversing about Justice Spetse. I had always been of the view that Justice Spetse was fond of his white hair until I realized for some other reason that his hair has become darker. The point I'm making here is that despite his age, he looks as handsome as he was way back then when I first met him. Long live Sweleba. You are a true jurist who has shown by example that excellence is something one should yearn for. You have inspired everyone who interacted with you at a professional level. I do not doubt that your good works will be a source of joy for you as you venture into the world of retirees. And at this juncture, it is as good for us to remind ourselves of the words of King Solomon, where he's got the following to say: "Seest thou a man diligent in his business? He shall stand before kings. He shall not stand before mean men." In your case, Keputola, that has come to pass. May whatever come next in your sphere bring you the same joy and fulfillment that you brought to us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
It gives me honor to call Humphreys Lusu to the stage, and my co-host had whispered to me that I must please emphasize the 5-minute time limit. If Mr. Lusu can come up, thank you.
Inkathazo xa ungaka kuthi kwawuthwa thetha ushumayele, kuthi kwawuthwa shumayela uthandaze ulile. The risk is that when you strike my age and when you are called upon to speak, you start preaching. And when called upon to preach, you pray. When called upon to pray, you cry. After the address by the Secretary of Nadel, I felt that she had said all things that I was going to say. And I thought I would come up the stage and say, Unyanisi. But I've decided against my earlier thoughts. I want to say to, oh, good heavens, I haven't observed protocol. Deputy Chief Justice, the judges, ladies and gentlemen, apologies for not having addressed you. There should have been better light where I stand. Having to speak in 2024 at an occasion honoring Judge Spetse going on retirement only tells me how fast time runs by. Judge Spetse was admitted as attorney in 1982. And I remember those years like yesterday. He was flourishing with energy and experience in 1993 when the bar here, I want to emphasize the bar here in Umtata, provided South Africa with the first black judge in the name of Tolakele Madala, later elevated to be one of the founding judges of the Constitutional Court in October 1994. That was a time of opening up of opportunities, which William Wordsworth in his time described after the end of the French Revolution in 1794 as a bliss, which, as a dawn, which it was bliss to be alive in. The quotation says, bliss was it that dawn to be alive, and to be young was very heaven. That was William Wordsworth writing after the end of the French Revolution, because then there were opportunities opened because of the revolution. Petser's experience in both work and ethics had been acquired, firstly, from doing articles in the firm, in the offices of Hughes, Chisholm and Airy. Hughes had been a parliamentarian of the United Party before Petser's days. Chisholm retired to Canton-on-Sea before Petser's days as well. He acquired his experience from doing articles in that office and from joining the office of the Sangoni Partnership as an attorney, which is the biggest black office that I have known. There were 7 attorneys in that office. In fact, Nsaluba SC and Sebeza SC matured in that office. In fact, the Sangoni Partnership was one of the few black offices in Umtata, few offices of black attorneys in Umtata. The first one having been that of Mr. Matebese, which was opened in 1971. Thank you. Mr. Petser's appreciable juridical career ascending to the Deputy Presidency of the Supreme Court of Appeal can only be testimony of good grounding, focus, and dedication worthy to emulate. Speaking from the home province and from the home court, if that is ever said, I can safely say he gives us pride. His initial experience, both as a practitioner and as a judge from 2005 to 2012, was gained here. I said the first black attorney came from the bar here. I need, and list also, the first black judge came from here. I need and list also that the first attorney to become a judge was Attorney Somialo from Kumbu here. He became the first black attorney to be appointed judge. And the first woman, black woman, to qualify as attorney was Ms. Desiree Mamazana Finga from here, about 4 kilometers from where we are. She So also were the first and second black magistrates in South Africa from here, in the names of Mr. Mbuli from Ngambedlana and Mr. Stofile, appointed to Flagstaff on the 1st of March 1968 and the 1st of May 1968. I am told that we are about to produce yet another first. So we need to be proud. It is, are you program director?
I'm program director.
Madam Program Director, it is exactly as I think of these positives that my head cuts deep when I catch wind of some serious negatives reflecting on the operations of the High Court in Umtata. Such negatives being attributable to practitioners and some of our lady judges who make habit to arrive late, resulting in courts starting late, particularly after weekends, and affecting the dignity and discipline of the courts. It is sensitive, I'm going to explain why. From the observer's window, this is an unacceptable taking advantage of the soft hand of the leadership. And yet, we in the periphery remain curious and jealous why big litigants take their matters, disputes elsewhere for determination. Examples are the case where Massmart had a dispute with Gain, had a dispute with Checkers about their operations in Umtata, and they took the case to be heard in Grahamstown. And also the case of the exploration of the sea activities in Pisana. When that case is taken to Grahamstown for discussion, for adjudication, we, whilst appreciating and liking the concurrent jurisdiction aspect, we remain curious as to why those cases are not heard in the court in Umtata. The layman's suspicion, therefore, is that these litigants somehow undermine the workings of the local court. It is experiences of this kind which temper with the excitement of sending someone of Judge Petse's caliber on retirement. It is also my fear that any time after August or next year or any time in the future, after the change of leadership of the judiciary in the country, when these things are in the wider view, they will be thinking that the failures arise from the change of leadership. Wrongly. We talk as I do because we would be the first to complain when judges are appointed from outside the country, when daughters are appointed from outside the country, because we maintain that we've got our own daughters who qualify for the positions, but they must service us. As Wordsworth wrote of Milton centuries ago, I want to corrupt the saying and refer it to Judge Petse. Wordsworth wrote, I think it was in 1802, Milton, thou should be living, England is in need of thee. And hence, I want to say, Petse, thou should stay put. Our courts are still in need of your expertise. The stability of the country depends on a judiciary that is intact, steadfast, and unshaken in its purpose. Thank you. It is if the judiciary lets loose this whole thing which we have, call it democracy, give it any decorative name, will crumble under its own weight into anarchy. The judiciary is the only arm of government that even settles disputes amongst the other arms of government. Hence, ladies and gentlemen, I get confused when a man whose relative, a father or anybody, is confused in open court, is convicted in open court, stands and says on television, the judges are biased, and nothing happens. Because to me, that man identifies the court and identifies the judge. And that, to me, is clear contempt of court. But the offices that are tasked with looking into that are failing us. Of talk, that man should be hauled to a court for yet another judge and be acquitted there. If, as I arranged to sit. Madam Program Director, if there's anything which is not welcome, which I said, I want to repeat it still, because I make no apologies. In the play Richard III, it was written, but I corrupted. They say, when things go wrong, wrens find prey where vultures dare not perch. Xa kusonakala, intengu nentakazana zihamba ziyodla apha amaqhala ngoyikayo ukuya. And I stand here like the small bird who ventures into work.
Nkosi, I think it was an honest reflection and we thank you, so no need to apologize. We appreciate the words of wisdom. Thank you.
I'm sorry, thank you, Program Director. We have made a greatest mistake for which we apologize. We have been joined by the entire executive of PAPASA, led by the capable and trusted Deputy Chair Advocate Nomgcobo Jia. They are our alliance in Natal. Where you see PAPASA, Natal is just around the corner. They are our partners. They have come all the way from Johannesburg to honor this day. We acknowledge your presence, Deputy Chair, and the leadership of PAPASA. So I felt that I must just acknowledge that personally. Thank you so much.
Thank you, President. We're running behind schedule and we are celebrating a retirement. So as you come forward, please, Advocate Ntsebeza, can I just humbly request that you take 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. Yo, I thought there were people around here. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, no, at least now I can rest assured that there are no ghosts. I'm speaking to people. Justice Pete, Judge of the Supreme Court of Appeal. As we know, when he joined that court, I think it was the last bastion of white male judges. And it was a very difficult task for the Judicial Service Commission to break that tradition, because virtually everybody who was in that court was white and male. So when Justice Pete was recommended for appointment to that court by the Judicial Service Commission, it was for him to be a pioneer in yet another area which was dominated by white male judges. The Supreme Court of Appeal. But there's a story that I would like to narrate. And it has nothing to do with jurisprudence, though it may have something to do with a sense of justice that I would like to indicate when paying tribute to Justice Betze. There was, and I don't know if he still remembers this, we had a client who was detained, I think 1983, I think that was the year, and I think the offense then was that he was harboring terrorists or something like that. And whilst he was in detention, and I think his name was Charlton Dooley. And whilst he was in detention, the prison authorities insisted to shave him. And I think Judge Betze remembers this. And there was a big fight because we had established, and I think that had been confirmed by a dermatologist, that no sooner had it shaved his beard off than he would grow some very ugly blisters in the face. And I think we had an opinion of a white female doctor who had said he should not be made to shave because of this, outcome whenever he shaved. So we brought an application in court. And you must remember, it's pre-Constitution days. There was no Section 12, freedom and security of the person rights, which arguably you could have used in order to interdict the prison authorities from forcing this gentleman to shave his beard. So we bought, we got interim relief, and between the interim relief order which we got, which was interdicting them from shaving him, and the time that we went now to get a final order, the brigadier was head of prison, happened to meet with Judge Betze, and in the conversation in which they had, Brigadier told, or in the conversation that they had, he told Judge Betze that we are going to make sure that that prisoner does what we want him to do. We are going to shave him, whether he likes it or not. Now, Judge Betze, as you know him, he comes across as a very innocent person. He has got this nice, manner. And I think it encouraged Brigadier Saul Gazana to speak more than he ought to have done in showing that they were going to force him, whether he blisters or not, they were going to force him. And that threat that he made found itself into a replying affidavit in which an officer of the court swore that these people were deliberate, they don't care whether medical evidence is there to make sure that the person should not come into any harm. I think that person was Charlton Dooley. Mtsaluba and I even had to travel to Maluti prison one Saturday to consult with this old man. He was an elderly person, to consult with him because the prison authorities wouldn't allow me to consult with this person who was, a prisoner. And I had to be assisted because I was still doing articles. I had to be assisted because I was an article clerk. And I had a history of having been an ex-prisoner myself in that very prison in Mount Fletcher. So, but because Judge Betze deposed to that affidavit and he revealed that the Commissioner of Prisons had told him that they were going to force him to shave whether he gets blisters or not, because that found itself into that affidavit. It was the first time that a prisoner was allowed by a court order to wear a beard, because Tsweleba had betrayed the brigadier for a good cause. He had told the court what that brigadier had said to him, and the courts believed him, and they granted him the relief that he wanted. So I don't want you to forget, Judge Tsweleba, what you did then. You must remember, there was no Section 12 rights, freedom and security of the person, which arguably could have been relied upon to prevent, the prison authorities from forcing a person to shave when it was clear, also from the dermatologist's report, that he would come to great harm. We'll remember you for those feats as well. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Judge Dakota, if I can ask you to please come up to the stage. Thank you.
Program directors, Deputy Chief Justice and your loved one, justices of the Constitutional Court, the judge presidents of the High Courts and acting judge president, colleagues, senior counsel, advocates, attorneys, members of the NADEL, families of the how shall I call them? All right, let me divide them. Families of Justice Tola. His Tola to me is my friend. Families of the late Judge Langa. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to speak as a friend about Tola. I have been given 7 minutes according to the program. I have known him as a friend for 49 years. I'll be finishing 50 years in February next year as his friend. So I can't speak for 7 minutes, please. In all these 49 years, and I'm glad that the program director had made a remark that they will also have regard to our ages. I'm older than Kola, so I should have retired myself but I'm not in a hurry to do so. I also lived or started working during the period of the apartheid. Judge Ntsebeza of the African Court and Human Rights, I would say he was my advocate at the JSC. So the stories I told there were correct. I just want to make one story now. Working with apartheid magistrate. I was a magistrate in Tanzania. Goldsworthy was one of the magistrates, I think he's dead now. He was old in 1981 anyway. So the late Mr. Nzondo was his prosecutor. Mr. Nzondo would stand up and say, Your Worship, I withdraw the case against the accused. Insufficient evidence. Mr. Goldsworthy would say, What? What do you mean? There is evidence. Look at him. Look at his face. He's full of scars. He's a criminal. There is evidence. What more do you want? I'm not going to allow that. That's what the apartheid magistrates were doing. Let me come back to the relevant part for which I'm standing here. The road on which we traveled, all of us, gives us enough space to develop so many avenues of each and every one of life. Each and every one of us has got an examination paper to write in life. The kind of person you are is partly revealed to others through behavioral patterns. You must therefore be yourself and try not to imitate others. My prayers have always been that I try the best as I can without surrendering my principles like Xola to get along with everybody. It is in this process that we interact with different individuals. Your acquaintances will develop in either friendship or enmity or antipathy. You have to make choices. After all, life is about choices. I have learned that all the best things in life are available to everyone. The destiny of each individual is in the hands of God. The beginning of our friendship with Xola was in 1975, when I met him at the University of Fort Hare. Now, I cannot remember what really connected us. It's because it's more than 40 years ago. But all I know is that I was smoking, he was not smoking. If he was, I never saw him smoke. He was not drinking. But we were connected to one another. You know, friendship is something which is funny. It is something which happens spontaneously. You don't choose friends and say, I want you to be my friend, like you propose a woman. He was and still is one of my distinguished friends. I've got many other friends. Of course, as you know, you've got two categories of friends. A man of integrity. They have spoken about that. He is upright, decisive. His character, in my opinion, is so impeccable that it is beyond reproach. One of the distinguishing factors of Xola is that he does not take decisions in accordance with whom he is dealing with, but he does so in accordance with facts and environmental circumstances prevailing at the time. That is an ineradicable character which he chose in his active life and that befits the kind of an honorable judicial officer of his integrity. Many people, when faced with difficult time, will always look around finding so many people responsible for their misfortunes. Xola is not one of those categories. He unconsciously taught me that one must refrain from blaming people from one's decisions, which turned out to bring about misfortunes. The advice you receive from others is meant to guide you and not to take decisions based thereon. That's what he taught me. The reason for this, he told me, is simple. When you seek an opinion of a colleague or a friend, you tell the facts in the manner in which you perceive them, or you tell them in such a manner that the opinion must coincide with what you have decided to do, so that you may say, I was advised by so-and-so. The solution to this is what? Always believe half of what you hear and what you are told, especially if someone is vilifying somebody. But you will never hear Petse talking about somebody else, the ill character and things like that. That's not Xola. He is a man of principles. Some of the people, especially the legal representatives, they say he's strict. He's not strict. His principles, he goes according to the rules, goes according to the manner in which things are to be done. The time was, from him, was always of the essence of contract, and it still is. I can assure you, the fact that these occasions started late, he was so bored. He always likes to be on time. But there's nothing you can do if something is prepared by so many people. There's nothing really you can do. You must live with that Xola. As I know him, he never makes promises about something when he knows that he will not be able to fulfill those promises. I value my life with you, my friend. My life has been enriched because of you, my friend. I know that you've got degrees which you got, one from Fort Hare, we were together in Fort Hare, one from Natal, but there's one degree of which you were not conscious, of which I'm aware, and that is a BE. What is a BE? It's a Bachelor of Life. That man has got a Bachelor of Life. That's why he's got such an experience which he has displayed in all these spheres of life where he has been displaying his career. A beautiful life does not just happen. It's built on daily love, laughter, sacrifice, patience, grace, and forgiveness. Every successful person has a painful story, and each painful story has a successful ending. We must accept the pain and achieve the gain, and don't let little things get us down. Xola knows very well our days in Fort Hare, where we come from. At some stage, we were in jail together. He has been always there for me during my difficult times in life. I'll never forget the things you've done for me, Xola. Good relationship keeps us healthy. That's why I'm healthy, it's because of him. It keeps us happier. Social times are really good for us, and loneliness kills us. People who are more connected with friends and community are happier and physically healthy. They live longer. Ask yourself, where are you? They say the lion does not live beyond the age of 16 years. He's always angry throughout. So you must know that if you are angry, one day of your life is gone. Every time you get angry, control your temper. That's what Goldsworth used to say. It is not a number of friends that you have that matters. But first, it is the quality of friends you keep that will uplift or bring you down in life. Second, good relationship protects not only our bodies, but our brains. Good life is built on good relationship and friendship. That is the value of being in company of quality friends. I must conclude now. I'm taking this opportunity to thank everyone who participated in organizing this occasion, and in particular, giving me a space to say something about my friend while he's still alive. I would like to let you know that I have truly rejoiced my life and with friendship with Xolo throughout, and I'm still going to enjoy it even during his retirement. Sooner or later, I'm going to retire. We will set up a timetable with my friend what to do. To Xolo, I wish to say to you, my friend, you have been a strong influence on my professional career. While I was at the SCA, and I'm sure at your instance, I really enjoyed working with you each and every day, and I enjoyed working with your colleagues, all of which, without exception, were very friendly and very, very, very helpful. I have taken all the guidance you've given me while I was working under you. Thank you for being a great friend to me. Farewell, my dear friend. The memories we made together will always hold a special place in my heart. Your presence in my life has brought so much joy and laughter. Your kindness, your generosity, willingness to always be there for me and others has been a true inspiration to me. You know very well the difficult examinations I had to write in my life. I'm talking about degree of Bachelor of Life. And your sacrifice in assisting me in every situation that nearly broke my heart. Such invaluable assistance will never dissipate in my heart. Your wisdom, guidance, mentorship have made an indelible impact on me. Have a joyous and a fruitful retirement, my friend. I thank you.
And then can I give you the gift as well?
Thank you very much, Lisel. And I would also like to recognize the celebrant. Unfortunately, I couldn't say the birthday boy. And members of the family, Deputy Chief Justice, judges of the Constitutional Court, JP, judges of the SCA. I think I only saw one, but there might be more. Colleagues from the bar, our attorneys, esteemed guests, all protocol observed, as it has been said. I was not here this morning. I only arrived about an hour or so ago. But I'm sure that many people who have been talking about Ubud Xolo have suggested that it's a loss that he is retiring. So I want to differ with that and say, no, it's not a loss. And I will explain why. One of the encounters, at least the closest encounters that I have had with him, apart from having known him or even known of him for a long time, was when we had to have the close interactions in the JSC. But before that, I'm glad to say that I'm not sure whether it was in the 90s or the early 2000s. I came here to represent his brother who's sitting here, who was being harassed, to say the least, as a school principal, and we managed to save his job. So, Putkola, wherever we meet, always reminds me, hey, one night, man, save Putwam or brother Wam. So that's the kind of gracious person that he is. Now, when we were in the JSC, and I'm glad to see some of the colleagues from the JSC here, Commissioner, as we call each other there, we called each other there, the commissioners were all here, including some of our occasional chairpersons like the DCJ, soon to be Chief Justice. Just to rub it in. And one of the issues which I really wanted to talk about is the issue of diversity in the judiciary in particular. Ubutola will tell you, I'm sure, that I probably sounded like a scratched record. Those who were watching some of the interactions we were having with the candidates at the JSC, because it has always been my thesis that Section 174(2) of the Constitution, which deals with diversity, comes very short because it confines the issue of diversity to race and gender. And it is my honest view that diversity goes much, much wider than that. There are all sorts of types of criteria which could have been used: religious diversity, ethnic diversity, language, all sorts of things. But I just wanted one specific issue, which is ideological diversity. And I think that's very important. It might well be that we could have judges who are diverse from a point of view of how you look, you watch them with a naked eye. But if they all think alike in terms of any of the ideological standpoint, then there's no diversity from that point of view. Why am I saying this? There is one of the intellectual giants, and you'll see where I'm going with this, one of the intellectual giants that has ever been produced by this continent and the diaspora is a person called Frantz Fanon. Now, Frantz Fanon is a serious revolutionary and holds some very radical ideas about what must happen in society, including one of his most controversial ideas is that something that was taken through violence can only be reclaimed through violence. Now, not many people would agree with that, but that's what he says. He also says a whole lot of things about the land question, and how the land question relates to dignity. But one of the things that I am quite sure is that some of our judges have, well, definitely before 1994, all the judges had never heard of Frantz Fanon. Or even if, well, they wouldn't have heard of him because his books were banned in South Africa. So it was one of the most refreshing things that I've ever seen when I read a judgment that in the first 2 paragraphs quotes Frantz Fanon. I thought, no, I must be dreaming. I never thought this was ever going to happen. Because And fortunately, it was a unanimous judgment. I'm prepared to swear that some of the people who concurred with the judgment don't know who Frantz Fanon is. Otherwise, I think they would have kicked Butxola out of court. Now, this is a significant thing because, you know, if you had quoted a controversial figure that people whose controversies are known, I'm sure then the judgment would have been controversial. But this is what was said in that judgment, paragraph 1. The statement by Frantz Fanon in his book titled The Wretched of the Earth, and this is one of his finest works, is in the context of this case apt. It neatly sums up what lies at the core of this application. He said that, quote, "For a colonized people, the most essential value, because the most concrete, is first and foremost the land. The land which will bring them bread and above all, dignity. Thus, strip someone of their source of livelihood, and you strip them of their dignity too. That since ancient times, land has been the most treasured possession to all and sundry throughout all generations is a truism that brooks no argument to the contrary. Currently in South Africa, the clamor for the redistribution of land has not only heightened interest in land, but also put the center stage that socio-political discourse raging in the country," unquote. That was one of the most enlightening, at least to me, judgments. And it was handed down by acting justice then, Pete, in the Constitutional Court. And it is, for those who have any interest, cited, I think, as 2019-2-1 SACC. So what I'm saying is not about Frantz Fanon or about Butxola. It is about, or not just about the two of them. It is about the type that, for what I believe, of diversity that we need, and the type of diversity that he brought, which is probably not recognized enough into the bench. Because the kind of thinking, the very idea that he is okay, let me not elevate. I regard myself as a Fanonist, but I think, okay, he has read Fanon. I hope he is also one, but I don't want him to be labeled at my expense. What it says to me is that there is hope that hopefully the kinds of diversities that we need in this judiciary would have been brought by people like him. And to that extent, I would concede that it is a huge loss to have someone like him not being part of the bench. But to come back in closing to my earlier thesis that it is not a loss, I say that he is here. So to the students, if there are any students here, academics, colleagues at the bar, even at the judiciary, he's here. To come back to the metaphor of land, I say use it or lose it. And in this case, use him or lose him. Thank you very much.
I think I have to blame Justice Pese for the long speeches. I'm failing to control. I'm trying my level best. Like they say, people will forget what you said, and people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So I'm trying, but how you treated people, it's like they want to speak forever. And if we have any person to blame tonight, is the celebrant. Please don't look at me, look at his direction. I'm going to ask now my sister, the Judge President of the KwaZulu-Natal Division, to come and introduce our guest speaker. Thank you.
At the table where I'm sitting, I was told they are keeping time, and I have assured them I'm not only going to introduce the DCJ, by the way. I'm supposed to do 3 things. 1 is to give a message of support to Nadel. 2 is to pay tribute to Oputola. 3, introduce the DCJ. But because you are my sister as the JP as Mpumalanga, and she comes up emva kwam, so siyezana naye. Ndizamenzela favor, I'm going to do this in 6 minutes. And that I will do only if I'm mixing isiXhosa nesiNgesi. Because vele emva ko-6 ngoLwesihlanu andikwazi uthetha isiNgesi. Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, Makhatebe, ikumkani nendlovukazi ndivumeleni Butxola, Justice Petse, noSisibongile, noBudabula ndithi nqanga nentsiba zayo. KwiNadel ndithi continue the good work that you are doing. It is very rare that you do something for someone without expecting anything from them. You do not expect anything from Oputola because we are retire. Akhondo engako anganizama ngayo ngaphandle kwala wisdom anayo. Singabafazi, i-South African chapter of the International Association of Judges, Nadel City Kuni, we feel and see your support. We have come a long way, and you still have a long way to go. Siyabonga Jola, nonolita na yonke executive ne members Nadel, singulombutho wabafazi, womama be-judges aseMzantsi Afrika. Kuwe Butxola, as I fondly know you, ndandingakwazi ndisazi uJustice Petse, ndayo-actor e-SCA, hayi ke ndanembeko ke apho bethuna abantu abandaziyo ndachula ukunyathela kodwa ndafika kubhuti uSweleba uNzopha uGqagqane uNxabela uMandelihle uMqolobanzi obeleka ithokazi uNzuleka indoda ethobekileyo nobuntu esebenza ngokuzinikela irharha lomfo ngoba liqhula udibana nobhuti wam oligqwetha apha eMthatha ulandela ukhona apha nonkosikazi wakhe uthi kuye xa ubhuti wam eyozazisa kuye esichaza uba ungulandela Boyo akafuni ke uba athi uyibrother kaJP wase-KZN ufuna nje ukuthi ungubrother ungulandela Boyo but ayizumsandawo kakhulu lonto. Uthi ke uButxola xa iphendula uthi ungaphinde umention elo gama kum andifuni nombona lo kutsho uButxola kulandela. Ulandela unewari ke ngokuba inoba ndamenzani bamshana kanjalo. Yilento ndithi ke uliqhula ndithi ke mna ke uthi unifonelele lonto ubilile ucimba ndingamenza ntoni uButxola. Sithi ke Butxola ningamaphutha ahlathinye no Chief Justice Langa ngoba sisela amanzi omlambo omnye apha kuni ngenxa yobubunzima balomsebenzi eniwenzileyo. Ude athi kobuburharha bakhe bokuqhula xa ndibhali i-judgment phaya e-SCA ndimcele ke njengobhuti wam omdala ndithi Butxola khawuyijonge mani before siyi-circulate ayijonge kayilungise uSweleba agqibe athi masinike abantwana babelungu badlale ngayo. Ukuba ubuyinkomo ngendisithi mawukhonkxwe ngesipantawuli ukuze ungayindawo ukuze kusengwe kuyo nangabasezayo. Ndingathetha kubuya inkomo kodwa mandithi ungayeki uyisebenzisa ingqondo ngoba ayigugi and ayipheli ngenxa yoba uske wayisebenzisa. Siyabulela ngokuba ube uyijaji egqibeleleyo ingcaphephe. Siyabulela Sisibongile ngokusiphathela yena kakuhle ngoba xa indoda ingaphethwanga kakuhle ngumfazi nengqondo le ayikwazi ukucinga kakuhle. Kwaye Bhuxola ndifuna ukuthi wakwazi ukuzeka ngoba kuthiwa xa ubhude uzeka ubhude ubomi. So ubomi bakho buyabonakala bazange ubhude ukuzeka. Ngalo mazwi uenjoy umhlala phansi. Ndivuyela lento ba xa khunto yokufutshane ngicela ukuthuma umuntu kuyo ndizawufowuna ndithi Bhuxola ndiyacela Nkosi ijaji zonke zabafazi especially mna noShila siyabulela kakhulu ngegalelo olidlalileyo ukuba sibe zezi judge president namhlanje. Iimessages zakho osithumelele yona ngexesha lobunzima bethu zenze ukuba sibe ngalamagorhakazi esingawo namhlanje. Siyabulela futhi ngoba uthe wazi volunteer uba uzawusincedisa naba bafazi nabazenye judge ezifunayo uba ubancedise babhale ezi judgments kakuhle ngeli xesha lomhlala wakho phansi. Siyabulela kakhulu. Ndidlule mingabe imizuzu ndidlule ndizo introducer i-role model yam, imento, uMarhadebe, umfazi wasemazizini, usisi womzi wam Ndendele Emahlubini, Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, who holds a BProc University from this university, LLB from University of Natal, Durban, LLM from the Duke University, USA, degrees, and then she holds 4 LLDs, honoris causa, enye by the Nelson Mandela University, Walter Sisulu University, University of Fort Hare, and University of South Africa. Those were all awarded to her in recognition of her contribution to the development of jurisprudence in South Africa, as well as the empowerment of women in the legal profession and the judiciary. She practices what she preaches. Sinje silapha nje kungenxa yakhe wabona nto wayithatha wayikhulisa. She's the Chancellor of the University of Mpumalanga, a former Deputy President and President of the South African chapter of the International Association of Women Judges, and the current Vice President of the International Association of Women Judges. She's a Fulbright Scholar, a Fellow of the Georgetown University and University Law and Gender Program and the Commonwealth Foundation, and is a recipient of the 2020 Duke University Law International Law Alumnus Award and the 2021 Sydney and Felicia Kendrick Award. After teaching law in the University of Transkei, while also practicing as an advocate at the Transkei Society of Advocates Mthatha, she became a judge in 1999 and sat in various divisions of the High Court and the Labour Courts before her elevation to the Supreme Court of Appeal of South Africa in 2004. She became the first woman Deputy President of the SCA in 2015, the first woman President in 2017, and the first woman Deputy Chief Justice of South Africa in 2022. And should I dare say, in less than a month's time, I am sure she's going to be the first, siyayazi by first what. She has acted as a judge in the Supreme Court of Namibia and the Appeal Court of Lesotho. She promoted law reform as the chairperson of the South African Law Reform Commission and is a member of the Commonwealth Association of Law Reform Agencies, the South African Judicial Education Institute, the National Bar Examination Board, the Duke University Bosch Judicial Institute Leadership Council, the Judicature International Editorial Board, and is a founding editor of the South African chapter of the International Women Judges Law Journal. She also sits in a number of other quasi-judicial and academic organizations. Ndingathetha nakhona kubuya inkomo kodwa ndifuna ukugxininisa into enye bendinixelela uba i-role model yam yi-mentor yam ebengu president wesakha e-WJ ndangu-deputy ngoko ndingu-president ninoyicinga uba nam ndicinga ntoni ngesam isimo. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, the Chief Justice designated nominee, Justice Mandisa Muriel Lindelo Maya.
Ndiyabulela majali. Ningablame mina ke zinkosi bendithe lentwazana xa indi-introducer kusebusuku nam ndidiniwe and kudala ndisiva nje ukungqumshela ngasemva kwamba abantu baqhuqukile ngoku badiniwe. Uye wala ke wenza lo mtyatyadulu wagqiba uwenza ingapha kwamandla Program directors, it is late as I've already said. We've all had a long day, so I'm going to try and keep things as short as possible. First, I beg your indulgence to allow me to follow the protocol you've already established and acknowledge only the celebrant, our dear brother, Deputy President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Justice Xola Mlungisi, his dear wife and our sister, Sibongile Betse, and their son, umtshana we-judiciary uLundi, nekunkani ke yamampondomise, umntwana omhle, uzan. Oh my goodness, I knew I was going to do this. Uzwelo Lozuko, ndiphathe ngathi izani lozuko ndiyaxolisa mntwana inkosi ungandidli. Nendlovukazi inkosikazi yakhe, umama uNobuhle, uma Ngcwangule, ndikuchanile, enkosi. All protocol observed. Good evening. It's always a sweet pleasure returning home to this august university and my beloved alma mater, Walter Sisulu University, and I do so today to speak at a prestigious event that marks a celebration of the illustrious career of a gentleman in the truest sense of the word, an honorable judge and colleague who is also a dear brother of mine, Justice Petse, as he embarks on a well-deserved retirement from the bench. And I want to join the previous speakers in thanking Nadel and President Mvuzo Nokesi and his organizing team for granting me this rare honor of speaking here this evening and for organizing this wonderful event to honor the memory and valuable contributions of our giants in the legal profession and the judiciary to develop our country and transform it into an equal and inclusive society. Butuam Justice Petse, I prepared a beautiful and emotional speech for you. But I'm afraid I'm going to have to skip half of it. I will give you a full copy and hope that Nadel will post it on their website so that the rest of you and whoever else is interested in it can read it for themselves. So I'll just stick to the bare minimum whilst trying not to, detract from the essence of what this evening is about, today is about. I want to start, though, at the point of Justice Petse's career, where it's still a bit of a distance from when he became a judge, because I find it fascinating and I think it is worthy to, it may have been said already, but I think it's worthwhile to repeat it, because it just illustrates just the kind of man he is. And I start where he had just completed his articles, and that was way back in 1982, I'm going to keep it short, at a firm called Hughes, Chisholm & Eyre in this town, Umtata, a firm which was one of the oldest and biggest at the time. And shortly after he completed his articles with that firm, he became one, and this is the point I want to highlight, that he became one of the few notaries public and conveyancers in this homeland, as it was then called Transkei. So between the years 1982 and 2005, Justice Spetse practiced as an attorney, notary public, and conveyancer right here. And in August 1982, he left that firm, Hughes, to join another renowned local law firm which kept many soldiers of the struggle out of jail and provided many black counsel across the length and breadth of this country, including myself, with much needed work. And that firm of attorneys was Sangoni Partnership, which also boasts legal luminaries such as former Judge President Themba Sangoni, Judge Nzebeza Ubradi, Bralu Stofile, and many others. And not surprisingly, Justice Spetse, who started as an associate at the firm in August 1982, had become a partner by June 1983, hardly a year later, and practiced as such until early 1988, when he did something very rare and brave by returning to university. And I'm assuming he left Sibongile with young children and decided to go back to university on a full-time basis to enroll for the LLB degree at the University of Natal in Pietermaritzburg. And this would be an entirely new beginning for him, because when he completed that degree, he returned to Hughes to start almost at the bottom again as an associate until he finally established his own law firm at the dawn of democracy in September 1994, and that firm was called, well, still is called XM Spetse Incorporated. And as to be expected, it became very successful quickly, doing work which was ordinarily available only to white law firms. And that was notarial work, conveyancing work, and high court litigation, which back then was the almost exclusive territory of advocates, but in which Justice Spetse deigned to specialize. It was thus not a matter of surprise when he became one of the first attorneys to be granted a right of appearance in the High Court, when the Rights of Appearance in Courts Act 62 of 1995 was promulgated. And whilst running a busy practice, he still managed to plow back into his community in many profound ways. He mentored and trained many young aspiring legal practitioners in his firm, and routinely offered various pro bono services to those who came from disadvantaged backgrounds. And in the greater community, he was a counselor of the Cape Law Society from 1998 to 2001, and he always played an active role in church affairs, which earned him the position of Chancellor of the Anglican Diocese of Umbashe, and that is not, small potatoes in my church. His competence, consistent hard work, and conscientiousness, I practice this word, unique legal skills and experience, and successful high court appearances earned him well-deserved invitations to act as a judge in the various seats of the Eastern Cape Division of the High Court between 1998 and 2004, until his permanent appointment as a judge of the Eastern Cape Division here in Umtata in July 2005. Not surprisingly, in 2007 already, within just 2 years of his permanent appointment as a judge, he was assigned the added responsibility of being the acting head of the Mthatha Division of the Eastern Cape High Court. And in court, he presided, as we know him, over his cases in a fair, kind, and courteous, but very firm manner. He proved himself a very efficient administrator and introduced various new creative ways of doing things which greatly enhanced the functioning of his court, and he set an impeccable example for his colleagues by always ensuring that his judgments were always delivered expeditiously, and this is a habit that he kept until his very last days on the bench just recently, spending long hours in chambers. You would find Uputola in his chambers long after everyone else had gone home, and he did that without fail. After serving on the provincial bench for 7 years, he was elevated to a permanent position at the Supreme Court of Appeal in June 2012. After acting as an appellate judge in that court and establishing himself as solid material for permanent appointment such that he was kept for 2 whole years, which was unprecedented. So it was an easy matter for him. Well, we had to persuade him to make himself available for permanent appointment. I remember he was not particularly keen to do that, but once he gave us the permission to nominate and support him, he was appointed. And so he spent 12 whole years, which have just flown by so quickly. And in that 12 years, he made a tremendous contribution, not only to the jurisprudence, the development of the jurisprudence of the Supreme Court of Appeal and our courts generally, but helping to maintain the efficient running of the court, and importantly, helping to forge collegiality in what was a fractured and very difficult work environment, mentoring acting and new judges in the court, and building strong working relationships between judges and the staff. There are hundreds of well-reasoned, and we counted close to 500 judgments that you have penned in your lifespan as a judge. So there are hundreds of well-reasoned and meticulously written and seminal judgments in the widest range of areas of our law, which he has produced over the years in the High Court, at the SCA, and during his acting stint at the Constitutional Court in 2018, amply show his deep understanding of the role of a judge in a constitutional democracy and the transformative objects of our Constitution. In the interest of time, because my brief was also to discuss some of the judgments he has penned, so I'll mention just 2. The first is Maledu and others versus Itereleng, Bagatla, Mineral Resources Property Limited, and another. It's a case, it's a judgment that is reported in 29, Volume 2, South African Law Reports, Volume 1, for those who are interested in looking it up. Now, this judgment broke new ground by affirming the informal land rights held under the Interim Protection of Informal Land Rights Act 31 of 1996, enacted as a result of our country's constitutional efforts to rectify the impacts of past discriminatory land laws. In his unanimous decision, Justice Petse upheld an appeal by 13 families of the Lisetleng community who had been facing mining-induced eviction from land they purchased a century ago, but was held in a trust by the state on their behalf due to racially discriminatory laws forbidding their ownership of it. Mining companies have been known to undermine the land rights of vulnerable individuals and communities and have denied them their rights to be properly consulted and compensated during mining operations, and that's something that still happens to this day, notwithstanding our 30-year-old democracy. So tenure insecurity remains the ignominious legacy of the brutal apartheid regime that left millions of South Africans without recorded rights to their land. Now, the judgment this gentleman penned is lauded for having set an important precedent protecting informal landowners against the potentially harmful effects of mining activities, and it established a higher standard for obtaining mining rights over such property. Among the many societal challenges we face is the overwhelming escalation of the violations of the rights of women and children on a global scale. The grim reality is that our country has the highest rate of GBV gender-based violence in the world, and it is generally accepted, to be a profound human rights violation with significantly detrimental social and developmental impacts for survivors of violence, as well as their families, and this tears at the social fabric of our communities. Our society has lost faith in the justice system and the courts as a result of these extreme crimes against the most vulnerable members of our society, women and children. The judiciary is regarded as the guardian of the rule of law and democracy. As we know, it plays an important role in safeguarding the Constitution and its values, protecting the rights of people, as well as ensuring the realization of a better life for all. It is thus crucial for the judiciary to maintain the confidence of the public in its functions and independence. The courts play a vital role in ensuring that just outcomes in GBV and sexual offences cases and alleviating this scourge. Their difficult task, however, is finding the right balance between a just sentence for a convicted offender on one hand and sending a clear message that will deter would-be offenders on the other. And the courts are earnest in their efforts to eradicate this social ill and show support of the victims. Justice Pete is one of the few senior judges who have written judgments which interpret the law in a manner that fiercely promotes and protects the rights of women. And this is evident in a recent judgment he co-wrote with Justice Mabindla Boqwana in the matter of Director of Public Prosecutions, Eastern Cape, Makhanda versus Togo, which set a novel precedent for the interpretation of consent in sexual assault cases, more especially in cases of intimate partner violence. In this matter, these two justices reinstated the rape conviction of one Mr. Loiso Tsoko, who was initially found guilty of the crime, but was later acquitted on appeal by the High Court, which ruled that his girlfriend's participation in foreplay implied consent to sex. The justices correctly acknowledged that rape is an utterly despicable, selfish, and horrendous crime which grossly violates a victim's constitutional right to dignity, bodily integrity, and security of persons. They then made a finding not made in any case previously regarding the concept of consent in sexual offences matters, and proclaimed that logic dictates that even in circumstances where consent has been given to a specific sexual act, it may also be withdrawn during the sexual act to which the consent relates. This then means that if B changes her mind and withdraws her consent and communicates her change of mind to A, there would be no consent to speak of beyond the withdrawal of the consent previously granted. This is a message that we need to recite every day to all our children and every male who is in our space, because a lot of people are going to get in trouble because of this judgment. I don't know, there may be an appeal to the Apex Court, but as I stand here, it remains the law. As I have said, there are many other judgments produced by the stellar jurist, and that body of work, his rare qualities as a judge and a man, and exceptional administrative skills made him a natural choice to become Deputy President of the SCA in February 2019, when I vacated that position to become President of that court. But what many people don't know is that accepting the president's, well, I don't have the mandate to say this, but I'm going to disclose it. You'll forgive me, Justice Pete. Accepting President Ramaphosa's nomination for that position, from which he now retires, was a huge sacrifice on his part. Justice Spetsa was poised to join the apex court of our country, having already been shortlisted for a vacancy in the Constitutional Court, where he had recently acted as a judge when this position of Deputy President of the SCA arose. As we all know, that court, well, the SCA, is a senior and critical court which is still the last voice in many matters that come before our courts. It is of utmost importance, therefore, that its leaders are strong, experienced, and competent judges who are committed to the realization of the promise of and values embedded in our Constitution. Because of the kind of person Justice Spetsa is, a patriot and faithful servant of his country, it was not difficult to persuade him to give up what is likely the dream of most judges, to ascend the judicial ladder to its highest rank when he was approached to make himself available for the leadership position at the SCA and to withdraw his candidature for the Constitutional Court position. And that would prove to be an inspired course. As I had expected, this brother of mine and dear friend, not just to me, but many other colleagues, became a perfect foil and confidant for me, and we worked seamlessly together, managing to turn the SCA into a tolerable, if not pleasant work zone, while sustaining its reputation of being the top performing court in the country and breaking its own record during the COVID-19 epidemic. And there is, of course, the critical role that he played at the Judicial Service Commission during his involvement in that body, as alluded to by the former speakers, Professor Marumachai and Advocate Mpofu, who served with him there. Sweleba, Nzopha, sekuthuthile uthoba ndizawuphela nje kwezi zibini izithuthu. It is a true privilege and honor to have worked with a lawyer and leader of your caliber. Your contribution to the development of South African law has carved your name in stone in the annals of our history, and we congratulate you for this amazing milestone of serving your country with excellence and integrity for almost 5 decades. Your departure will be greatly felt in the institution of the judiciary. But as my President Molemela said, we are not done with you. There is a lot of work to be done, and we need our retired judges to help. We will be calling upon you sooner than you think, and we implore Usibongile to bear with us just for a little while longer while we try to set things right. So, uphumule kakuhle Sweleba, ngalo maxesha sizakupha wona ngoba uza kusebenza maybe even harder than you ever have during this so-called retirement of yours. Ndiyabulela bethuni.
Thank you very much. And now the celebrations are about to start. But before we do that, can I call the President to the floor, please? President Nochesi.
Ukuba bendingapha kuqumbu, that is apho ndisuka khona, bendizawunidlalela enye into. Lolani bangathi xa ndijonga indlu, hayi kwawutshonelanga. Kuba benzawuke ndinixelele good X kwisidlalo phaa sithi kuthiwani akukukwa ngapha kukukwa ngapha akukukwa ngapha kukukwa ngapha unyala wendlu enkulu besethu xa sesihamba siba sibakukwa ngapha sithi unyana wendlu enkulu hayi asinawuvuma elubala unyana wendlu enkulu hayi bayemaxwaka nje hayi kodwa naye sakulungela. We stand up at this stage. Ndabulela mawethu, ndabulela. we stand up at this stage, with X, to have our special thank for all that we've done. First, we thank you for being a loyal servant to this organization. We will forever and ever remain indebted to you. We have members of NADEL, as I've said in the morning, that NADEL is an organization of volunteers, servants. You have been that servant. The king of Amampondo, because we're trying to see what is it that we can do to express our appreciation to you. We look everything until the king himself gave an idea and advised us of what we do. And he is here to give you that actually, the reason is here. He is the one who's going to give that which he had advised us to give to you. And all these things, they have a meaning. And we're not even going to hide it. And the king is standing here boldly, because kalon njengoba bekuncoma uThoba esisuba wazeka right uzeke kuthi kusibari wethu lo kusibari wakomkhulu wankosikazi phi guqu yemara njengoba bensizwa Mr. Tia lungele lento. Now what we have done, we'd have to check what is befitting. There is this shield. As you go home, we'll give you this shield. This is a shield that you will, in defense of the legacy that you have lived. This is a shield that you will use. Secondly, we have, because you are an embodiment of many different things. Sakunira unalengu. Kula lengubo sikunika yona because ngoku njengoba kula isolation uyabona ijudges zihlala pha ungazukunze ngoku sifuna utla uhleli pha endlini ume pha kuqanda uthi wampa and sakunika lo mnqwazi kwabe suthu lo mnqwazi. It does reflect the diverse person in you. That is very, very symbolic to us. And then, kunabantu sikunika lomkhonto, not the MK party, but lomkhonto. Lomkhonto long. Early in the morning, I made reference to what happened when the African National Congress was formed, way back when they met in Bloemfontein, and they decided onto these symbols. Lomkhonto kumkhonto gqotha amagqirha angasondeli exa kwakho. Akhohlakele ukwazile ukuwaphepha yonke le minyaka ungakulinga uvuma sondela kumkhonto wakho lo siya. Uyabona sikunika ezizagweba. Uyabona ungakuvike nje. Uyabona sifuna kawuhamba ndiyakwazi umuntu othanda uzihambela pha. Uthini uzibambele nasi intonga yakho. Uhamba nelanxasana. Kola nxasana belapha lithatha. Ndibona uba nabe liphethe intonga sonamane nihamba kunye. Uba nanka unxasana. Anizosibiza asikhahlelo sakho besikhona isikhahlelo. Zonke inkosi zinezikhahlelo nami nesikhahlelo. Isikhahlelo zami sibini. Xa ndiphaya kuqumbu ndinguNkosi uDalowa ndathatha eSikamathanzini kuba wayenesibindi. Xa ndilapha eMthatha ndinguNkosi uDingindawo ngoba kundilapha ndidingindawo. Ndidingisela ndize ngiyasaka. Kumkani nyana kamavunga mzukulwana kamavunga ixeli zakho nomandoda wena wakuloyokazi mzukulwana wenkwakwa wena wazalwa phambi komkwakho uThixo wabenza bonke abantu waqala yangu phezulu yangu nguThixo ezulwini limbonise emhlabeni manikele wena uthini unikezele njengoba besishilo ezi zinto kutata uPetsa xolo mzukulwana kaMagolithi fafoluthe lungenanyathela apho kunyathele kwena kunawuvela nengca kwavuka amawenu kwakufanelekile yizajola bulela jola kukuzithoba bendingenawutsho kodwa ngenxa yoba kutsho wena ndicela ndinikezele kwempondomise.
May you please come to the stage?
Program directors, I think at my age, I can be pardoned for breaching protocol. Ndikhahlele kwisilo samampondomise nomama wesizwe samampondomise Solozuko. Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa. President of the Supreme Court of Appeal in absentia. Esteemed colleagues and eminent members of the organized profession, Vice Chancellor of this institution in absentia, Professor Songa, and members of the academia, and retired fellow commissioners of the JSC here present. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for honoring us on what has turned out to be a long day. Those who are expecting an erudite speech from me this evening will be hugely disappointed. All I will be doing in reply is simply to share with you some, light moments and reflections on my legal career in the past 45 years. And all of those have little to do with law, but more about, as I've said, the light moments that helped calm down high tempers that all of us have experienced in the practice of the law. And my response will be short, given the lateness of the hour. And wise on brevity, I have this hilarious event to share with you that happened many years ago. It was during a civil trial which was underway. Counsel was leading his witnesses. One of them happened to be a very small man, yet old, and for lack of a better word, no offense intended, this is the size of a man that most people would call a midget. After concluding his evidence, he was excused by the presiding judge. And as he was standing down from the witness box, the presiding judge said, addressing himself to counsel, Mr. So-and-so, we are 20 minutes to tea time. How long will your next witness be? And counsel, thinking that he was being humorous, responded, my lord, he'll be much shorter than the previous witness. The small man was so enraged, and were it not for the timely intervention of the court orderly, he would have ruffled counsel a bit. I practiced law for some 27 years. It has been a long journey with twists and turns, ups and downs. And what I'm about to relate in a moment might astound some of you. Around about 1982, I represented a certain widow and her brother who were sued by the elder brother of the deceased husband for the return of lobola, which was paid to the uncle. Upon the death of the husband, the widow was blamed, accused of having bewitched the young man. She had to flee her married home to return to her maiden home. And whilst there, she had a liaison with another man, as a result of which she gave birth to a daughter who was raised, educated by the uncle. It so happened that a suitor came along asking for her hand in marriage. There were lobola negotiations. It was paid to the uncle, and the paternal uncle got to hear about that long after the wedding, and he sued the brother-in-law for the return of lobola. I represented them. His claim, stood on firm ground because the law was on his side. We went to court, and unsurprisingly, we lost. Then I advised my clients to appeal the judgment, not to the High Court, and this will surprise many of you gathered here tonight, but to the Minister of Justice. There was a law those years which made provision that in matters involving the application of African law, disgruntled litigants in the magistrate court could appeal to the Minister of Justice. We filed our appeal, favorably considered by the Minister of Justice, and justice was restored. The Minister of Justice upheld the appeal, set aside the order of the Magistrates Court, and substituted it with an order dismissing the plaintiff's claim with cause. As an attorney, I always tried my level best to be the best that I could be. At the forefront of my mind was the realization that my clients had entrusted their affairs, money, even their personal freedoms and lives to me. Many of the clients were ordinary people faced with complex challenges life threw at them at a time when they lacked capacity to address them on their own. And as a judge, I knew full well that litigants expected no less. One thing which I reiterated with my colleagues at the SCA almost ad nauseam was that most of the cases which came before us were appeals against a single judge in the High Court. And when litigants came before us, they saw 5 judges sitting on the bench, and that each one of us, as members of the bench, owed those litigants a duty to apply our minds to the task at hand so that any judgment which comes out of the court at the end of the day would be a result of collective wisdom of 5 judges. You know, the work at the SCA was intellectually stimulating, but I'm not going to go there. In the midst of all of that, and even the heavy workload of the court, there were also light moments. I'm going to share a few of them with you. On one occasion, when we got to court, I asked counsel who appeared for the appellant, Mr. So-and-so, how did you come to Bloemfontein? And counsel said, Deputy President, I flew in last night. Then I said, no, that's not what I want to find out from you. What did you say to the High Court for him to grant you leave to appeal? What did you say were the reasonable prospects? And we're still to this court. And counsel clearly realized that the writing was on the wall. And needless to say that the appeal failed. Then there was another moment, when counsel came to see me in chambers before the commencement of the hearing. Then I usually ask them, as Mr. Mpofu would attest, counsel for the appellant, how much time do you need to present your argument? Then the counsel for the appellant said, an hour to 1.5 hours. And then I asked him, why do you need that amount of time to present your argument? And counsel said, well, I'll try and wrap up my argument, barring questions from the members of the bench, within 45 minutes. Then the same question was posed to counsel for the respondent, who was overly confident of the strength of his case, forgetting that counsel, or bold is counsel, who think that the court necessarily shares their view on the merits of the case. Now he said, no, my colleague has a problem here. I won't be more than 30 minutes. Then we went to court. Counsel for the appellant, his argument lasted about half an hour, and this counsel was overly confident about the strength of his case, was on his feet for about 1.5 hours. Whenever counsel came to see me in chambers, we engaged in, little talks. And one counsel one day mentioned to me and said, Judge, during my last final preparations for this case yesterday, I came up with a point which I think, is the strongest point. And I said to him, forget about that. Points that occur to counsel on the 59th minute of the 11th hour, in my experience, are invariably devoid of substance. I only know of one instance when counsel came up with an argument presented in the form of, he filed supplementary heads of argument. And I'm sure Brady will know this particular counsel, Louis Dyson from Cape Town. He had an appeal in Bloemfontein. He was practicing in Cape Town, and his opponents were also from Cape Town. He bumped into them at the airport and presented them with supplementary heads, reached an agreement with them that first thing in the morning, those supplementary heads would be presented to the judges hearing the appeal before they went to court. And then lead counsel for the appellant said to his team, oh, I'm not surprised. It's typical of Louis Dyson. I'm not going even to read them. And he didn't read them. Then they went to court. The presiding judge asked him, Mr. So-and-so, don't you think that the point raised by Mr. Dyson in his supplementary heads is dispositive of this appeal? Counsel was flustered. He asked for a short adjournment. Then the last one to which I wish to make reference, there was a judge at one point in the SCA who it was known, would pose 3 questions or propositions to council. The first 2 were just innocuous, and council would not hesitate to accept the proposition put to him. And the third one was a killer point, and council would, when the proposition is put to him or her, realize that he should not have considered the first 2, but it was already too late. So this particular council was clever because he knew this is what this judge always do. Then the judge said, Mr. So-and-so, I've got 3 propositions that I want to put to you. And council responded. Those days, they were addressed as my lord. My lord, I am prepared to entertain your proposition, but only if you would ask the third question first. But the judge would have none of it. The story is told of an eminent counsel from the Johannesburg bar who had a conversation with one of the judges who wanted to find out from him why he is or has been turning down all invitations to come to the bench. And his response was that I would rather stand on my feet the whole day and talk nonsense than sit on my bum and listen to it. As I have already mentioned, I practiced law for 27 years, during which time I occasionally talked a lot of nonsense to the annoyance of the judicial officers who had to listen patiently to what I said. Once I was elevated to the bench, I was at the receiving end, sitting and occasionally listening to nonsense, as if the day-long torture, mental torture to which I was subjected was not enough. I was still required to write a short story about what I'd listened to and how I saw it, and presenting that story in the form of a judgment of the court. Happily from now on, I'll be spared all of that. As a retiree, I'll do whatever I like, whenever and wherever I choose, and everything else will be none of my business. You know, in the practice of the law, as all lawyers would tell you, anecdotes abound. So I have one more last one to share with you. It was a civil trial. The presiding judge was summarizing the evidence. The scales were evenly balanced. He could not find for the plaintiff nor the defendant. And in the course of summing up, the presiding judge said, and I quote, "In this matter, I'm sitting on the horns of a dilemma." And the interpreter's rendition of that expression went on like this. Ujaji uthi uhleli phezu kwempondo sesilwanyana endingazange ndeva ngaso apha ebomini. Free translation is, the judge says that he is sitting on the horns of an animal I've never heard of in life. So according to the interpreter, anything that has horns must be an animal. Concluding my speech on a serious note would be an appropriate point where I should end it. For present purposes, I had two issues, critical issues to touch upon. One has already been mentioned by the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal. As you would know, the Minister of Justice presented her budget speech for the 2024-2025 financial year in Parliament a few days ago. The OCJ, Office of the Chief Justice, has been allocated some 2.4 billion rand, and this figure represents a 13% decrease from the 2023-2024 financial year. And as the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal said, the courts going forward are now expected to do more work with less resources, both human and financial. I don't see how that is humanly possible. But happily for me, that's a matter that I will leave to the collective wisdom of the members of the judiciary. But it cannot be gainsaid that budget cuts impact negatively on the work of the courts. So I would implore members of the organized profession to take up the cudgels on behalf of the judiciary and the clients that they represent. Second, a word or two about professional ethics. In the past years, one has read with sadness about the increasing number of reported cases involving unprofessional or dishonorable conduct in the legal profession. It might be timely to remind ourselves that amongst all professions, the legal profession is an honorable one. And it bears emphasizing that it is a profession, not a trade or business, one to which it is an honor to belong. Those privileged to practice law are officers of the court, much as the judges who preside over them. They are expected to live honorable, to injure no one, and to give to everyone their due. Their preoccupation ought always to be the pursuit of justice and truth. And during the first session, Mr. Skakane made profound comments about the concept of justice. To discharge these noble ideals requires men and women of integrity, honesty, moral rectitude, unwavering courage, and whose ethical outlook is beyond question. All of these attributes must, of course, be underpinned by great industry and forensic skills for the lawyers to do their work to the best of their ability. And I dare say that practitioners who are bereft of these qualities and attributes tarnish the good name of the profession. I therefore respectfully ask each one and every practitioner at all times to uphold and defend without flinching the good name of the profession in the public interest. It remains to express my heartfelt gratitude to the Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, eminent counsel, and everyone who had something to say this afternoon and early evening. I thank you for the kind and heartwarming words. I've been touched beyond measure by your gracious sentiments. Although my elevation to the bench, as with many of us, entailed a huge financial sacrifice, I'm happy to say that it has been a profound privilege and honor for me to have been afforded the opportunity to serve my beloved country. I thank all of you from the deepest depths of my heart. Diabule, Kialewu, Diabo.
Thank you, Justice Spetsa. We are at the end of the program. And from my side, I would like to thank everybody for having participated, especially the speakers. Through your speeches, we heard how much about Justice Spetsa's role on the protection of human rights and the promotion of the culture of transparency and accountability, but above all, your commitment to the cause. And like, without my approval, the Judge President of KwaZulu-Natal, thank you on my behalf. I thought I'll do it myself. Maybe I have to tell the House, it wasn't easy for me and the Judge President of KwaZulu-Natal to be occupying these positions. But Justice Spetsa was there for us. He made sure that we walk the talk, and he was there for us physically like an elder. And for that, that's how I said, people will always remember how you treated them. I really appreciate what you did for us, and you believed in us as women, and that will always be appreciated. To the audience, maybe firstly to Nadel, I'm humbled by your request that I be part of this and be a program director. I really appreciate that you don't forget that I'm still a member, even though I don't pay my subscriptions anymore. Thank you for recognizing me. And for doing this, usually we speak about people at funerals. This was very good, and I really thank you for what you have done today. And we're all learning from this. And to the audience, you've been such a wonderful and patient audience. A round of applause for yourselves. Thank you. Thank you. I'm handing over to my colleague. You're my colleague.
Thank you.
Justice Pete, we hope that our tribute and celebration reflects your legacy of dedication and distinguished service. The program was thoughtfully curated to symbolize our appreciation and recognition for the man, the lawyer, the judge, and also the leader. On that note, I'm going to call on Eunice to formally close the day's session and also indicate what we can anticipate to expect in the next part of the celebration process. Thank you.
Good evening, colleagues. I know it has been a very long day. Please allow me to stand on the protocol that has already been observed, but also allow me to recognize DCJ, Justice Maya, as well as the celebrant for this evening. Justice Pete, you are recognized, and it's a great pleasure to have you here today. I'm not going to take time, we are all tired. This is the third segment of today's program, and when we envisioned this program, the third section, we wanted it to connect with our African heritage. As you can see, the decoration that is in this hall today, it was very intentional. We have a fantastic lineup of African musicians and performers who will also be taking us on a journey through the rich and soulful world of African jazz. We also have African dancers. There will also be storytelling which will remind us, or which will be nostalgic of being around the fire with those who are close to our hearts, such as the celebrants for today, when we are told stories about the past, the present, and the future, and we are advised as to how to conduct ourselves as honorable members of societies. I will not even speak about the legal profession, because before you are a legal practitioner, you should be an honorable member of society. That will then define what kind of legal practitioner you will be. So the storytelling that we are going to have will remind us of those times that defined the kind of individuals that we are, which speaks to the celebrants today. I think one of the key takeaways from today's event, Comrade President, was that we are not where we are because we are special or we are clever. We are where we are because our comrades have confidence in us. And one of the key takeaways from, storytelling, African dancing, African jazz is that there's a spiritual awakening that happens in that, which conscientizes you and which reminds you that you are who you are because of those who came before you. And also, for members of NADEL, I know we've got guests here. For members of NADEL, I want us to see from the celebrants today, Justice Pius Langa the late and Justice Pete, that the member of NADEL that we aspire to achieve is sitting in front of us. It really doesn't matter, but I think ultimately what we should all aspire to be is a quality member of NADEL, an ethical practitioner, a conscious practitioner, which will always influence the trajectory of the legal profession. And with that being said, colleagues, before we sit back and we relax, may I kindly call the President of NADEL, Comrade Nojesi. I know you've spoken a lot today, even if it's just for 1 minute, just to reflect on what happened today, to thank our guests, and then also usher us to dinner. Comrade President, thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Masipa. Really, I have a very, very limited statement to make. First, wow, I just don't know where to start. It is for the first time that in Natal, in one day, we have no less than how many? 29 judges present in the room in a meeting, and no less than 5 judges from Concord, no less than 5 judges from the SCA in one roof, at least 3, if not 4, judges present. It has never happened in this organization. And I would be, and in fact, in our program, in one day, you have the Chief Justice in waiting. This thing of Deputy Chief Justice, let's forget about it, it's gone now. We have a Chief Justice. In the next 2 weeks, ngesikhaya sethu thina sibonga ozayo asisathethenye into ngo yeke noma nithi DCJ sawukhangela omnye umuntu kuleyo sinale. So it has never happened, Deputy Chief Justice, that we have the President of the SCA, the Chief Justice in waiting. The Chief Justice in waiting. Ikone let sendibone. So what it simply means, put X, abantu first not tina, it talk to the caliber of a person that you are. It talk to the caliber of the life of the late, of the former Chief Justice. That is, this day was appropriate. And even those that are not here, I can tell you, out of more than 200 and something judges, almost all those that we have invited, they wanted to be here. Actually, they confirm. We have responses. We have responses from them. Some sent messages of support. Some even wrote to us. They're even talking. And remember, from the political side, because the minister wanted to be here too, we were competing with Parliament. And the sacrifice that the judges, I know all the leadership of the judiciary, they were in Cape Town for Parliament. They have to drive, the DCJ had to drive since this morning. We really appreciate that. Members of Papasa from Johannesburg, I repeat, the entire executive of Papasa, led by its deputy president, they come here. The university, this thing would not have been this success if it was not for the partnership with the university. Of course, our team, the organizing team of Natal, we have women, men and women who have put ideas for this. Very brilliant ideas. It was not for the president. All what, from my perspective, all what we wanted was to have a successful day like this, and each and every person just will take nothing less than the success that it was. So they have to, particularly the deputy president of Natal, who was heading the entire preparation. We have a trusted deputy president, and he is trusted to the extent that he did not contest me. If he contested me, then he's not trusted. I told you. We have I don't know, Suzuki, I don't know, Jola. It's not something that is rare. Justice Bukwana, all the way she came here. And I remember there were chances that you could not, you have to sacrifice something for you to be here. We really, really appreciate it. We noted, I was even thinking that you won't be here because I knew that there was such possibility. Kunabantu kumadoda, amadoda amakhulu, I would be making a mistake. We have Mr. Bulelana Magwanisha and Mr. Jomo Nyambi. They were who served with them in the JSC. They are not there. They are not in the JSC now. But they made sure, in fact, the whole idea of this function of celebrating Justice Peter, it is a plot of Mangwanisha and Jomo. They insisted when we were in the jail, said, look, once we are here, this must be done. We really appreciate what we have done, and we could not have done it, really, as I'm saying. Members of the legal profession, everyone, we thank each and everyone. I could repeat myself. I've never seen, this was a Friday. I was worried in the morning, and Justice Madlanga actually, he says to me, hey, niyasithanda ezinto ezinkulu ezingolo nethikeni ngakwazi nokuzigcwalisa. Hayi futhi ndiyigcwalisile namhlanje. Enkosi kakhulu, and then food will be served here, and there will be jazz, there will be activities, and then that's what we are going to do. Enkosi kakhulu kakhulu, ningandigxeki apho ndingakhange ndithethe khona. Each and I would have tried to have seen each and every person, each and every salva simbonile. Bulele ke nekumkani yam uba ikumkani yam kuthe bayingene nobugwale bendinabo batsho baphela. Sibulele kakhulu kumkani. Bulele nakukumkanikazi wamaMpondomise. Ukumkanikazi wamaMpondomise is only in the Eastern Cape. Only kumkanikazi eyalotyolwa ngemini enye 100 yenkomo. Zikhulunywa zihambe kubukela. Sibulele kakhulu noba uhlale usichile sawuhlala sikuxabisa nakuba izinto zethu. Enkosi kakhulu ngalo masina. Oh, no, sorry, there's sorry to do this. Kunomfo apha nomfana omncane, kunomfo ntonto umfana omncane. Kuyabuzwa lo mfana, kuyabuzwa, yema. Lo mfanyana nana yijaji nyande. Oh, Judge Makgoga, I have to specifically, he came this morning, but he could not. Ndidla ngokuthi ngumfana omncane xa ndimbiza kuthiwa uyambona manje uyakhumsha lo mfana ubona judgment indlela ibhale ngayo yatyibilika likhulu kabi. We are so excited. Mrs. Kakane, I mean Advocate Kakane, like all the judges, I mean everyone. So we have to mention Judge Makgoga specifically because he has to come all the way to be here and next to his friend. I could see he wanted to cry because now all responsibility now are going to shift to him. Uput ex umkile, he's gone, so you are taking over. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Comrade President. And without any further ado, we are now going to go for dinner, and I'd like to urge all comrades to observe protocol. We are going to first allow our guests to go and serve dinner, which will be at the back, and then soon thereafter, we will have the Executive Committee of NADEL, Executive Committee of BLA, and all other guests will then follow to go and enjoy their dinner. Thank you so much, colleagues, for your time. Sit back, lay back, enjoy your dinner, and enjoy the African activities that we have lined up for you. Thank you once again for your support and your patience. Thank you, colleagues.